I wanted to discuss some permaculture methods today about diversity of methods and to use everything. And this helps to enable one to set up a system that works. And over time, you have to work less and less because the system that you've set up will be doing all the work for you. So, for instance, here I propagated some jasmine, and there's about 3 or 4 plants in here from my mom's place, and it's doing well. It was just about 3 inches tall before, and now it's about 4 or 5 inches tall. 5 inches, I'd say, 6 inches. And here I have Thai basil, and this is the one that I couldn't cover because I didn't have the plastic bags that would surround this giant Thai basil, and I didn't think it would survive the winter. And some of the branches indeed are turning brown and stuff, but I think it will survive because the main branch, the trunk is so thick, and I think that it will survive this winter into the spring. And I'm really grateful for that because the ones that I actually covered, there was one that didn't fare too well. Let me show you. This one, I mean, it's completely dead looking, except for this new branch down there. But I don't know if it will survive. We shall see, depending on how quickly springtime rolls around. So, by telling you about diversity of methods and setting up systems that will work for you, and then you end up working less over time, I would like to discuss the fact that when I got the chicks this December, and you can get chicks in fall or winter, and then by spring they'll hatch eggs. They'll have eggs for you, and that's an efficient way to set up your system. So if I had gotten the chicks in the spring or late summer, then they would have laid eggs. They would have wanted to lay eggs by winter, but in the winter the days are so short that they won't hatch eggs, so you'll have lost several months in which they would have laid eggs for you. So then we had the chicks first in a little container and then into the troughs because they started to hop around and flutter. And then we place the chicks in the coop now as they're growing up pretty big, and that interim of time they stay in the coop and they don't go into their run or anything, so that they know that's their home, and also they stay warm. And we washed out the trough and then collected the rainwater and used that to water our plants, and some of it went into the cisterns for storage. So in that time we had used the trough and for the chicks, and then later used it for collecting rainwater. And also collecting the rainwater helps you to save on your water bill, and it helps to save water in times of drought and to disperse that great amount of water that came only once or twice or thrice a year. And you can use that throughout spring into early summer and not pay any water from that until you've run out of that water. And it's soft water, so it doesn't have chlorine or salts or anything in them, so that dually is good for the garden and for animals. And from the cisterns and rain barrels and troughs and buckets and jugs that I've collected, I have tons and tons of water extra. And then when the season's over and I've emptied all the milk jugs of the rainwater, then I start to toss it out in the late spring and summer, and I don't collect any from late winter all the way through fall. And then I start to collect the rain jugs, the milk jugs for water collection in the fall again until the rains in the winter. And that cycle keeps going on and on. So I just collect jugs to help collect water, and then after a period of time, so for instance here I have a bunch of jugs of water, and as soon as I empty these out this fall or summer or spring, then I start to toss those out in the recycle bin, and I won't collect them, and I won't have so many of them during half the year, and then I collect them again in time to collect rainwater again. So then it enables me to collect more water and then recycle jugs later on, and it's just a cycle. And rainwater from the cisterns lasts pretty late, and then in the fall and winter I also collect lots of leaves and mulch and such, because then when it rains it saves the water below this. So underneath all this mulch it's going to be pretty moist because it rained. So look, I just moved aside some of the mulch, and there's still moisture underneath, so it traps it underneath, it saves it. And so all these plants that would have dried out, it has a lot of soil beneath, so it just saves in your water bill still. So I just and also these mulch in the winter time, when you have so many leaves and so much of this mulch material and wood chip, you use it below your plants to insulate and warm the roots and to keep the water within. And then it breaks down and and there's so much life, fungi, earthworms, and all sorts of things underneath. So you're just protecting it, keeping it nice and insulated, and feeding the mulch in the soil below. And so I collect lots of leaves, lots of mulch, wood chips, and in the fall and the winter. And then from the city and just off the streets, off anyone that I know that has good grass and grass clippings and such. And then so it slows the rain going down into the ground. It absorbs it and collects it here near the surface here, and it steams up and heats up the big mulch pile that I have, and then it breaks down that soil, that mulch, and holds water longer, is beneficial for microbes, and breaks down leaves. And you can bury compost in it, and then mice and things don't dig. So if you bury it a little deep enough, you're feeding your soil with your compost. And then I also pour ash, which provides some lime, and it further breaks down my mulch pile. And I put sometimes I'll bury compost in the ground and dig a hole, and then after that I place the mulch over top, and then I put cardboard over top, and then on top of the cardboard I'll put a potted plant, and over time it'll break down and nothing can dig into my compost. So that's the way that I like to do it. And then as far as compost goes, there are many ways to compost. You can compost in a big heap. You can have vermicomposting. You can feed chickens and they eat and kick the food around and break it down quicker. You can trench compost, and you can compost upside down compost in a trench, the way that Morag Gamble does from Australia. And as far as fertilizer goes, you can have compost break down and feed your plants. You can take the vermicompost worm castings and worm tea to compost and to fertilize your plants. And you can use chicken poo, feathers, bedding, rabbit poo, and let it break down and feed your plants. And you can put shredded papers, mulch, leaves, coffee grounds, eggshells into the ground and let it break down. The eggshells offer calcium, banana peel offers potassium, all kinds of things. And I use so many things to place in my compost. Like as far as papers go, I get such a huge supply of papers. I get ads, school papers for my kids going to school, their handouts. Anything that doesn't have a shiny layer can be composted down. And I use cardboard that I use to house the rabbits. I use them to cover their pen during the rain. I use it as a weed barrier, so I'll just throw it right on the ground to prevent weeds from growing up. And then it's less work for me so I don't have to pull up weeds. And you can use cardboard to cover a compost pile that just got rain on it, and you just place the cardboard over top so it keeps the moisture down below, and it helps to break things down even faster because it keeps the moisture in the mulch pile. And you can use cardboard to line a coop. I also like to use and reuse bags for many, many purposes. I use them. This was from a grocery type of, it's like from produce. So it holds lots and lots of produce. And then I used it as a mini greenhouse for my individual plants. So in there I have a mango. And it doesn't look too hot, but it's still alive. And one of these I have my moringa, which likes dry, warm conditions. So I'm trying to protect the roots from all the winter cold and rain and such. And I think it will come back once spring is here. And I use them for trash bags, like the feed bags for the chickens and for the rabbits. I'll reuse those as trash bags. I'll use them to cover my troughs if they're full of water so mosquitoes don't get in. I use them to cover the chicken coop sometimes, or the rabbit pen, so they don't get too cold. I use them to cover and make greenhouses or cover my garden beds. Just many, many purposes, depending on if they're clear or solid. And use them to cover furniture even. I just try to use everything more than once. And if I can use it even more than 2 times, I'll do it. And I recycle everything, and I find a way to reduce my carbon footprint. So after these are used for this winter, I'm going to fold them up, put them in one of my city greens bins, and just keep it there all spring and summer long, and then I can reuse it next winter. So here is another one. and it has holes in it, and it would have better covered my basil plant, that one that was dying, that's suffering, except that the wind keeps blowing it and it keeps moving, and so it wasn't really covering it, but I think it might come back. It might. And I'm just really, really happy that everything's doing pretty well. I've managed to, another thing I try to do is not only keep over winter plants and keep them alive, so I do less work maintaining them, but I try to propagate them too. So the reason why I have so many Thai basil all over is, one, I love the scent, and two, I like to use it in my gardening. So I only had one plant that was really, really tiny from 2019, and when spring of 2020 came along, I wanted more of that Thai basil, and I didn't want to ask for another plant from my parents, whom I got the original from. So I just cut off pieces of it and I propagated it, and I had several. So I have one. The second one is over there. I think it's dead. It might be dead. So that's 2. That's 3. That's 4. The dead one over there is 5. And I have some in my garden beds. So I just try to have duplicates of everything, multiples of everything. And I propagated a passion fruit that I'm going to give to some friends, because these are going to grow really out of hand if I keep them. So I do plan on giving that away to someone who really, really loves it. And I'm so happy that I introduced them to a new fruit. And here's another passion fruit that I propagated. So, and also I heard that they only live to about 7 or 8 years, and then you have to buy another plant. So I'll propagate it for the next few years, and then I will keep one of them and keep giving the rest to friends and family and stuff like that. So real exciting. Here's a rose I propagated. It's going to be pink colored. Last year it had one bloom when it was half as tall as it is. And I plan on having more plants. I just don't like to come out in the winter. So what I'm going to do today is randomly toss out seeds that I gathered from last year and the year before for brassicas, collard greens, flowering plants, and I'm just going to randomly throw them in the mulch here. I'll just move the mulch aside, put it in the ground, and lightly cover them and see what pops up that from those seeds. And I had already given some to friends and family, so now I just want to fill in some of these spaces with flowers and such. And it's not very hard work, because I'm just gonna move aside stuff with my feet, scatter some seeds, and then lightly cover over top. So I'm not gonna do a whole lot of labor to try to have more plants. Oh, and another thing that was duplicates and multiples was lemongrass. I have 2 in the front, and from those I propagated here 1, 2, let's see, this is just growing beautifully. It's kale, and it had been full of aphids, and I kind of chopped off all those bits and gave them to the chickens, and now it's growing so lush and nice. And I was gonna just pull them out and get rid of them, but it's growing beautifully. And 3rd lemongrass, 4th, 5th, 6th lemongrass, and one way back there behind that greens bin. So I just have many multiples of things. Same with ginger. I have 2 back there, and I have a 3rd tall one way back there. And so I just try to keep having my favorite plants, multiplying my favorite plants. And same with mint. I try to grow them in containers. I haven't yet been brave enough to put them in the ground, but I might just do that. See, I grow the ash, wood ash down. When I see things green that are growing, I just cover it and try to prevent it from taking over. And it's really easy when all you have to do is kick around some mulch. So that's what I'm gonna do. And I don't have to do a whole lot of maintenance. So this, with all this mulch is breaking down and preventing weeds from growing. And I also grew plants over my mulch pile so that while it's breaking down, I've got growth, I've got things growing that I can eat and harvest. Let's check out the onion sets. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a little one. 6, 7, 8. So quite a few. Ooh, let's see what's going on over here. I think it's growing some fungus right there, but right next to it is an onion. Another onion. Something green right there. Another one. So I gotta water this one a little bit today. And another thing I'd like to share with you is, oh well, let's cut this shorter because it's already running too long. So have a great day.